Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Man on Second podcast. My name is Eric Wiedeke. As always, I am joined up by Joe Forsaro here. And Joe, the first series of the season wraps up for the Marlins. They fall 3-2 today in San Francisco, lose the first series of the year. What is the instant reaction there?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting series because you would have liked to take two or three because you had the opportunity the other on opening night to do it. Uh, Not total devastation. I don't think it's oh my gosh, they no panic mode. For the most part, we knew they would pitch. They pitched. We hoped that the hitting would be better. It wasn't. In terms of granted, you're playing a very good pitching team, but I think what we saw is we got a glimpse of what this Marlins team can look like, obviously, and we know they're going to hang tough. We know they're going to pitch. We know that they have their moments, but what struck me in their lineup construction, and I do feel the offense is better, and they will score this year, and they should be a better. I've harped on it. The bottom of the order was probably the most productive part of the offense in all three games, and I touched on why I think Jazz should be leading off, but I saw a very unathletic, kind of slow plodding station to station first five hitters. If Donnie's going to keep going with the Soler, Cooper, whether Sanchez is hitting third or fifth, or it's a lot of station to station. Obviously, those guys are better than they perform. They should heat up. We'll talk about Cooper's injury in a minute as well. But they didn't even present the threat of stealing. They didn't steal a bag. There was some moment today I noticed where in a one-run game, there was not even the threat of a steal anywhere after Soler got on. They weren't even looking like the defense. I don't even know if they're throwing over, much. So you're not putting any stress on the defense or the pitcher. He doesn't have to worry about his times to the plate, the catcher's times. But that's what kind of struck me. Just lineup construction. I like the players. I just may like them, scrambling it to be a little more of a threat to make some things happen with their legs. Because you got guys like Wendell, guys like Jazz, could kind of get the game in motion a little bit more. Miggy even, that maybe mix the lineup up a little bit differently.
Yeah, and to your point, like my whole thing with the lineup construction as it stands right now is 1 through 5. You've got a lot of all or nothing guys,
Yep.
and so you're gonna have really high K rates there. You're not gonna have guys getting on base. I know Soler got on base 4 times today. He had easily his best game thus far. No complaints really on him.
Even
Watching him go,
defensively, took an extra base away.
yep.
Yeah.
Watching him go first to third though on Jesus Sanchez's single. It was late in the game. It was an adventure watching him go from first to third there.
Yes.
Um, I'd like to see at least guys that can put the ball in play. I'd like to see Wendell at the top of the order. I think Wendell would be my ideal guy. Jazz, you could still make a case that the K rate might be a little bit high for a guy at the top of the order. Maybe you want to put him somewhere in that middle range. I wouldn't argue with you there, but I think that I think he's played well enough to where at the very least, and I don't do this very often, but for the symbolism of it, like this guy when he's right has the highest ceiling of anybody in your lineup. Treat him like it. Put him somewhere in the middle of the order, closer to the top.
Yeah, and to your point about Jazz's K rate, well, what's Soler's K rate?
Right,
So
exactly,
and,
exactly.
and one's a threat too. And yes, it's not ideal, and I get it, but I think when we're talking about K rates, we're talking about in Jazz's standpoint, a young kid who, yes, he's always struck out. That's why he got traded here. You know, uh, and you have to deal with that, but then you're assuming that this is the finished product. So I'm
Right.
not, I know it were a lot of people, the matchups and the OPS against lefties and righties, but so much of that is based on the past, and I get it, for more established guys. But to your point of Jazz's ceiling is the highest. We don't know who he is yet, but we got to make him right, and we're going to talk about Jazz's little drama he created on
Right.
Saturday with not starting. Well, but I don't want to get into that in this segment, but you see a dynamic player. You
Yeah,
see game changing speed. He could hit the ball out of the park. He has that kind of knack that the big moment doesn't get to him. So again, I'd like to see the lineup, and you make a very good point with Wendell. You could go Wendell leading off. Yeah, if you want to go that's lefty. You're not going to go Wendell and Jazz, but you could make that case that he's going to slap the ball around. He knows how to make some things happen. But I think we're in agreement that the Soler Cooper 1-2 isn't the most ideal for me, and I don't think it is for you as well.
yeah. No, it's not. It's not. I would just like I said, I want somebody that's going to get on base. I'm fine with Cooper at 2. I think Cooper is fine at 2. It's more
Well,
so
yes,
Blair,
yes. If you're
Blair the
going
one
for a
spot.
right-handed bat
Like, and
after
don't get
lefty,
me wrong. Like I understand the argument what Soler did in the World Series, but it's very much small sample size theater. You know,
yes,
it's a lot different when a guy's starting there every day, over the course of a long season.
yeah.
So I imagine they're going to let this play out for a little while longer, and if they continue to, yield less than ideal results, then there will be changes. But in the immediate, I think it's going to kind of stay as it is right now.
Yeah, yeah. And the one thing I just want to kind of make, and I kind of made a little flip tweet on it with Jazz hitting eighth today, because when you're hitting at the bottom of the order, no one wants to hear oh, well, you're the second leadoff man. No one wants to be the ninth hitter. Your
Yeah,
ninth hitter is it? You know what I mean? So
you know,
don't give me that nonsense that he's the. And I know it's a convenient thing, and I know organizations say it because they want to make people feel good, but we don't have to buy it. As a
yeah,
we don't.
it's really. I didn't know how to take that when I saw him hitting eighth, because if you keep him at that 9 spot, you have that. Well, he's our second leadoff hitter guy. Well, who's that for you now? Peyton Henry. I
Yeah. Well, it's
so he
really
just
it's
so what is
only the
it?
second leadoff guy if
Yeah. So
you're leading off the inning, because either you
yes,
have Peyton Henry or Jacob Stallings in front of you, and neither run very well. So you're not really helping. The leadoff guy is the leadoff guy. They lead the game off. No one's blocking them. There's nobody on base potentially in front of them to start the game to get in their way if they want to steal a bag.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to throw that out there. I
Mhm.
don't, it's just a narrative. It makes announcers. They like to say it because the manager says it, because they're just pacifying. They want to make everyone happy. And, oh, look, you're the second leadoff hitter. No one wants to be the ninth hitter. Let's just,
Right.
we're cutting to the chase in this podcast. We're not about making everybody feel good. This is a big league baseball, and how are the Miami Marlins going to put themselves in the best position? And that's how we're going to treat it. But I did jot down a few stats here, not to go too heavy with the first series, but 2 for 22 with runners in scoring position in the 3 games, 0 for 7 on Sunday, and in all 22 left on base, 8 left on base on Sunday and the finale. Obviously, execution. The Giants executed better than the Marlins over the course of the 3 games. That's why they won. They won 2.
Yeah, I think, and it's frustrating from the Marlins standpoint, because you could really point to specific moments in the first and the third game as really kind of cornerstone points where oh well, you can make the argument that they lost the game right there. And so it's like it's one of those things where the Marlins kind of and I hate this terminology because I really hate doing it. Oh well, did this team win or did this team lose? But the Marlins certainly did not help themselves in these 2 losses. And you need guys like Jesus Aguilar, and you need guys like Avasayo Garcia. And it's early. It's early. It's early. I cannot stress that enough. It is very early, but those are the guys that you're counting on to be your run producers, in this lineup. And if they're not giving you much, you're going to be in trouble in a lot of these games.
Yeah, and I think basically in the first 3 games, Sunday, Garrett Cooper getting hit by a pitch with the bases loaded was the only, I think, run driven in the series by, other than the bottom of the order.
Right.
And it took a hit by pitch. And real fast on Cooper, in case people missed the news, he got hit by a pitch by DeSclafani, ran a pitch up and in on his hand, left wrist. He's had issues, getting hit there in the past. X-rays came back negative. Obviously, they're going to follow that up. Hope if they're swelling in that area, it goes down and there's no additional damage. But as of now, it looks like he should be okay. So they dodged a bullet there with Garrett Cooper. We're hoping, because obviously they're going to need him, right? And how do you think that DH thing has been working?
I think it's been fine. Like for the Marlins or league wide
for the Marlins. For the
Marlins, I would rather, and I don't understand. I mean, sure, Aguilar had the injury at the end of last year, but by all accounts, Aguilar is a much better defensive first baseman. If I had to make a choice as to who I'm putting at first and who I'm DHing, I don't understand this need to also platoon them in the field. Aguilar is a far superior defensive first baseman.
Yeah, I'm agreeing, and maybe that's what the eye test is showing me. And on Saturday's win, I'm not sure if Cooper turns that 3-6-3 double play in the ninth inning the way Aggie did it. And we saw on Sunday with Cooper not hanging onto the bag on a ball that was rolled in. Sometimes you hear them say, "Oh, our metrics show Cooper's got more range or whatever," and I'm like, well, I don't know. Defensive metrics, of all metrics, defensive metrics are probably, to me, the most inaccurate. They aren't they're the most flawed, and people who rely too heavily on them may find themselves making a lot of mistakes. But I don't know. Maybe that's just to keep them both fresh. But I will say this: Aggie's a big guy, and he's not really going to be 155 games at first base type of guy either. You know what I mean? So he needs to get off his feet as well. Obviously, I would wonder if Cooper gets the Monday off because of the wrist. Does it need a day just to not chance anything? Then all of a sudden, you could scramble whether Brian Anderson goes into a DH type thing, or they get one of the outfielders off their feet, make one of the outfielders a DH in the first and play either Birdie out there, or if they want Dela Cruz to get a start. But I think John Birdie needs to be fresh too. But let's kind of switch gears over to kind of the hot topic on Saturday, and I think this kind of hot button issue of the culture of baseball, where a young, talented, marketable, and very out there in terms of making his feelings known player like Jazz Chisholm Jr. not happy not being in the lineup on Saturday, tweeted as much, and the Miami Herald and MLB.com, Jordan McPherson and Christina DiNicola spoke to him on Sunday, and essentially Jazz said, "Hey, he got it off his chest. He's going to try to do better. He wants to play, but everyone wants to play." Your reaction, because we want athletes to be transparent. We want to market Jazz. We want to market the blue hair or the gold hair and the chains and all that Jazz brings to the table. But then we get mad if he's a little heated for not being in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, like Jazz is also, he's a young guy, so and he's grown up in an era. And you're going to see this more and more. Like we've started to see this. Athletes are, especially guys that grow up in that social media era, they're going to be inclined to express themselves on those platforms. It's just the way it is. So I don't necessarily, I don't condone all of it, because I do think that there is a time and a place. And, you might not want to put your team's dirty laundry out in the public like that. That said, I think he had a pretty legitimate gripe overall. Because my whole thing with Jazz is, let's take that start that Jazz had last season, the first 2.5 months or so. That's the best player on this team, right?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah, makes things happen in so many different ways.
So my whole thing is that especially early on in the season, you want to get your younger guys into a rhythm. You want to get them going. I just wouldn't, especially after, if he had gone 0 for 4 with like 3 strikeouts and
And
he
look
wanted to
lost.
and you wanted
Yes.
to get Birdie into the lineup, nobody's questioning it at that point. But because he came out, he had a good game. He had a good game again Sunday.
Yes.
So it's just one of those things where, and I understand from Mattingly's perspective, you want to get Birdie in, and Birdie had a solid
He had a
performance.
good game, helped them win.
Yeah,
There's no doubt.
no, no shade to John Birdie, um, but I'm in the camp of, especially with younger guys, you want them to play as much as possible when you're trying to get them going early on.
Yeah, and I did a story, a pretty good in-depth story late in spring training for the Palm Beach Post. I encourage people to read the Post because I'm going to do some freelance stuff for them about Jazz and how Jazz noted to me that he admitted last year he let the umpires squeezing him or expanding the strike zone with him for strikeouts. He made it clear that affected his play. When he would get caught looking on a pitch several inches off the zone, it bothered him and it affected his play the rest of the game on a bad team, on a team that lost a lot of games. And here he is saying people are getting on him for striking out, and yet when he's taking a pitch that's a ball that's called a strike, it doesn't help his K rate, obviously.
Right.
And he acknowledged he wants to do better about that. In that interview, he also spoke. He wasn't crazy about hitting ninth. I didn't even touch that because there was so much other stuff. And then talking to Donnie, because I said, "What about Jazz?" And he admitted that he let his game bother him, the bad calls. And Donnie said, "Jazz's confidence is way up here. We want his game to be there too. They want a consistent focus." That was consistent focus from Jazz to constantly have that. Well, here he has the consistent focus. You're hitting him ninth, and to him, he wants to prove you're wrong. So he has the big game with the dramatic home run, the 4 extra innings on Friday, and he's sitting on Saturday. Maybe he knew it was coming or whatnot, but it doesn't mean he has to like it. Then on Sunday, you see him make a Superman flying through the air catch. When you break that down frame by frame, that people don't make that play. Like 2% of Major League Baseball players make that play. And when you're that gifted, and I've seen a lot of young players with personalities. A young Hanley Ramirez who had to be dialed back in. The veterans had to pull him in. And what happened was with the Marlins, they kind of enabled him ownership and kind of made him get away with some stuff that he probably shouldn't have gotten away with, and that set bad example for the rest of the team. I saw a 23-year-old Josh Beckett, come in, and he used to throw bullpens, and if he didn't like what he did, he would try to throw the ball out of the stadium. He'd get so frustrated, in the middle of a bullpen. He'd walk back and he'd literally try to throw the ball out of, Hard Rock Stadium in the upper deck. And Josh had such a strong arm, he probably did it once or twice. They react differently. These younger, really emotional, really they're adrenaline players. And I've learned you just let those players. Yes, you want foremost. You want to be a good teammate. I'm not condoning anything that says bad, because you're disrespecting John Birdie in your own way as well. And no one should be doing that. Disrespecting someone who's in the lineup and deserves to get playing time. You don't want to be a bad teammate, but you also, I think, have to identify that how you're going to bring the most out of Jazz Chisholm Jr. And one is you have to communicate really well with him to make him. You can't say we're letting Jazz be Jazz, but Jazz can only be Jazz to a certain point.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're going to have to kind of take the whole package. I think it is a bit overblown because I don't think it's anything that's going to linger. Stuff like this happens all the time. It's an emotional. You're around. They are around themselves, this team, more so than their families, which is one reason why I took my early retirement after 18 years of doing it, because I was around the Marlins more than my own family. It becomes that much of a grind,
right?
That you vent. Plenty of times I've vented and been vented at, either by fellow media members or players or managers or coaches or front office people. And you don't take it personally. You get over it. And Donnie has been through this. It's not a big deal. But the a player like that, I'm in agreement of I'm reaching out to try to get the most out of that player
Yeah.
and kind of keep him in the lineup. It's more
Yeah.
so
I mean, with Jazz, I like, and it's, and I don't know where the line is here, but I don't think that he's really malicious with any of the things that he's doing. I don't really get that vibe with him. Like, I don't get the sense that he's just bad teammate guy.
No, I don't think so either. He's a good kid who wants to do well by baseball. He loves the sport,
Right.
and he wants to do well by baseball. And he's a terrific young player. And I like watching him. I know our fans love watching him play. But again, my point is, don't say Jazz be Jazz until Jazz don't be Jazz. Shut up and play baseball.
Right.
It's you can't have it both ways. You can't let the kids play, and he's on all the commercials, with the look going and winking to the camera and you promote the Euro step, and then all of a sudden you're upset that he's upset and he said something about it.
Right.
Obviously, everyone should handle their laundry internally, and no one knows anything. But then the fans will, when things like that happen behind closed door and they don't hear about it, and then something brews in public, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" There's so many things I hear the public say that deep down I know this has been there all along, but either it's off the record stuff or stuff that you know wasn't worth publishing. But
Right.
we are more in an age of everyone tweets everything out whenever they have they don't like anything. Everyone just tweets it
Yeah.
out. So, uh, but overall, the pitching, real quick on that, I thought the starters were fine.
Yep.
Nothing super special. But Pablo, excuse me, Pablo on Saturday was the best of the three,
Yep.
and also was a step up game, and good for him. He answered some questions that I had, and we had discussed how he was going to look because last couple of starts of spring training he didn't look healthy. That was my
Yep.
biggest concern. But then his mechanics were off. But man, he looked really sharp, and I think all three of them gave 5 innings on the nose, and
Hmm.
and that's all you could really kind of ask for against a team that kind of grinds at bat. So I thought that was fine. But as we kind of wrap this one up, I don't know if you caught any of the Rays. The Rays kind of put it on the
Yep.
Orioles. Because we are going to talk about our cross-state
What's
rivals,
that? 15 in a
and
row now.
yeah, 15 in a row. I think one more is like some sort of record. But what does that come down to? That's an execution team.
Right.
If the Marlins want to get there, they got to find a way to win these one-run games.
Yep.
I think we talked the other day about, I think they played 88 two-run games last year. The Marlins did, and they lost 2 out of 3 in 3 one-run games. And I don't have the number in front of me, but I'm sure the Tampa Bay Rays won more than they lost, probably by a pretty good margin of those one-run games.
Yep.
And why is that? It's execution. It's You talk about a team. On Sunday, Corey Kluber had a 4-run lead, 4 2/3 innings. He gives up 2 base runners, and he's out of the game.
Yep.
It was his birthday. They didn't. Kevin Cash didn't even allow him to get the third out. Even if he gave up a run or two, to get the 5 innings and qualify for the win. That's how precise they play their system. And the guys who come in afterwards, they get the shutdown inning, they get the last out. They just always find the right matchup.
Yep.
And again, I think that's a good model as I encourage Marlin fans to be following the Rays as well, and to see a different brand of baseball, because it kind of opens your eyes to how the Marlins could do things a little bit differently. Not always theirs is better, but that is, their track record speaks for itself.
Right. Also, I do want to touch on just one small thing here. We made a lot out of the bullpen after the first game, and I do have to say, the second and third game, I was really pleasantly surprised by the performances that I got. They were really good.
Yeah, yes,
Saturday
that's
and
a good,
Sunday.
very good to bring that up. We would have been remiss. Stephen Okert,
Yep.
really, really good job. Richard Blyer struck out the side on Saturday after giving up a homer on Friday. Anthony Bender, blowing the save on Friday, comes back, gets the save Saturday. with relievers, it's very important to get them right back out,
Right.
and they're going to be needed. They're going to be used. Mel Stottlemyre is really good at getting the best out of these guys. What Armstrong got in today,
Yep.
1 inning, 1 strikeout. I mean Sunday, kind of 1 inning, 1 strikeout, and Anthony Bass 1 1/3. So yeah, a great job by them. No runs, and so it was good to see and good to touch on what the bullpen did, and yeah, bullpen, like I say, they're kind of like left tackles and left guards.
Right. Exactly.
They only get mentioned when they give it
Yep.
up. When they give up the sack, they don't get mentioned when they do well. But we'll give them some love as we get out of here. But yeah, and before we go, we'll give our plug for Dugout Mugs. Obviously, this is a time of year. Get those dugout mugs, wood or the aluminum. The aluminum I like better personally. Excuse me, Eric. Put the link on the bottom there for you, dugoutmugs.com/man-on-2nd. Hit that link and order your dugout mug today. But the season's off and going, my friend Eric. I think it's going to be fun. And the Marlins are going to give us plenty to talk about, plenty of content. They're going to stick around. You can just sense it. They're going to win their share. It's just how are they when they're geared to kind of win close games? How are they going to start winning these close games?
Yep. I mean, that's really what the next hump is to figure out, how to, it's and it's a cliche in sports, but they have to learn how to win. And that's where it is. It's in the details. It's in the little things, like you mentioned with the Rays. I think the Giants are actually a team kind of like that.
Absolutely, they are
in the way that they go about things.
Yeah.
So it's just a very interesting contrast watching these two teams play. But that said, the Marlins move on. They have a mini 2-game set with LA upcoming. With the Angels.
The LA Angels, yes.
The LA Angels, yeah.
Of Anaheim, yes.
Yes, of Anaheim.
So, yeah, that should be fun. And then programming note later on in the week, on Thursday, the Marlins have their home opener. If we don't pod before that, because I don't think we're going to do post-game pods at 2 a.m. Because they're on the West Coast the next 2 nights.
Right.
I think Eric and Mike are going to be handling. I'm going to be down at the ballpark. So if I can't get on, Eric and Mike got that podcast going. So, but we're up and running. And Eric, great show, and take us out of here.
Absolutely. You can find all of our content on Twitter at ManOnSecond. That's going to be at ManOn2ND, as well as our full-length podcasts on YouTube. That's going to be at the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Thank you guys, and have a wonderful evening.